Hello, everyone. Dr. Victoria Scarbo here, speaking to you from the Seeds of Transformation Healing Center in Wareham, Massachusetts. I had a watcher pose a question about the astrology for the upcoming public hearing, the January 6th public hearing, which is going to start prime time tomorrow, June 9th, 2022. And she was curious as to what the astrology might reveal about um, what we can maybe what we can expect from this. So we'll take a look at the chart of when this public hearing is to start, how it reflects on the chart of the actual insurrection, how it reflects on the chart of the US, how it reflects on the chart of Donald Trump, and anywhere else that this meandering through the stars will take us. So we'll take a look at that. And depending on how long that goes, I can do a card reading as well, but I may have to do that. I may have to do that in a separate video. So I will put in the descriptor whether that happens or not and when that happens. So if you're just interested in the astrology, you know when that's happening. If you're just interested in the card reading, assuming I get to a card reading, you'll know when that happens. So let's take a look at what we can see here. So I'm going to share my screen, and I think perhaps the best place to start is the insurrection itself. So let me see if I can pull that up. Okay, here we go. So this is the chart for the breach of the Capitol. I have it occurring at 2:15 p.m. on January 6, 2021. January 6, 2021 was a 12-3 vibration, the hanged man in the tarot, and the correlation astrologically to the hanged man is Neptune. And we see here that we have Neptune right at the top of the chart, right in the 10th house there. And not only is it at the top of the chart, but it is square the nodes of the moon, square the nodes of the moon. And when a planet is square the nodes of the moon, there is a split, a back and forth, a activation of both sides of the nodes. Depending on what planet squares the nodes, depends on the lesson, what we need to understand about something, what we need to look at, what issues are at hand here. And Neptune is often associated with delusion. And we have the South Node in Sagittarius. We have the North Node in Gemini. The North Node in Gemini asks us to look at the facts. The South Node in Sagittarius will often ask us, what do we believe to be true? And does it still is that still really true? Now, when a planet is square the nodes, there is a resolution node. That would be the last node that moved over that particular degree, in this case, 19 degrees or 1835 of Pisces. And that would be the South Node. So the resolution node in this situation is the South Node. A quick way of knowing that, and this is just a little sort of hint from your Auntie Vicky here, is you stand on the planet that is square the nodes, you look into the center of the chart, and then you look to your left, and that will be the node. And in this case, it is the South Node in Sagittarius. So the energy of the day of the Capitol breach of this isn't the only thing that is indicating an issue here, but we'll look at this first, is the fact that the resolution node for that Neptune square the nodes, and Neptune square the nodes can create confusion, illusion, delusion, is going to the past, South Node, and looking at the truth of the matter, Sagittarius, or beliefs around the matter, okay? And because it's in the seventh house, it's about groupthink. It's about a group of people. Perhaps we could call them true believers here, true believers. Now, besides the fact that we had Mercury, Neptune square the nodes, we also have to notice that over here we have Mars in the last degree of Aries. Now, if we remember about Mars in Aries, Mars actually spent a good portion of 2020 in Aries because it had a retrograde station in Aries. And whereas Mars would normally spend 6 weeks in a sign, when it's retrograde, it can spend up to 6 months in a sign. And Aries is the sign that Mars rules. And so it was retrograde in its rulership. And that when a planet is retrograde, it generally points in the opposite direction. So if Mars is retrograde in Aries, it's sort of pointing in the direction of Libra. And Libra can be relationships, right? But it can also be partnerships. And so there is a sense here that this particular situation was a partnership. Okay, a partnership. It wasn't just a single person, a single entity. There was definitely seems to be a partnership of people working behind the scenes, perhaps to get this moving. And a lot of that was fomented during the Mars retrograde. Now we also have here Mars approaching Uranus. And let's see what else we have here. We have a Pluto and Mercury conjunction. We have a Saturn and Jupiter conjunction. Remember, at the end of 2020, Saturn and Jupiter started a new synodic cycle. It's a 20-year cycle where it began at 1 degree of Aquarius. And so even the energy of Saturn and Jupiter is one Aquarian, is of revolution and revolt. But what is this revolution based on? Is it based on a truth or is it based on a lie? Okay, so let's take a look at the next thing we're going to look at is the January 6th commission. I mean, the January 6th prime time, right? January 6th in prime time. Is this it? Okay. Now here we go. Here we have this is drawn for June 9, 2022, which is tomorrow as I do this at 8 o'clock at night, because that's when it's going to start, right? So we can see here that we have a Sagittarius ascendant in this chart, and we have a MC in which is right here, the MC, the cusp of the 10th house in Libra. So Libra here is about justice. It's about balance. It's about getting both sides of the story, right? And then we have Sagittarius as the ascendant, and Sagittarius is the seeker of truth, the seeker of truth. This is actually very similar to the Sibley chart with a Sagittarius rising and Libra, I believe, is at the top of that chart. And we will look at the Sibley chart with this chart, and we'll be able to see that there are there are definitely things coming to light, as it were, with these charts. So a couple of things that I just want to point out about this chart is that we have Neptune is no longer square the nodes, right? The nodes are in Taurus and Scorpio, but we do have Saturn square the nodes, and this Saturn is the planet of reality. And in this case, with Saturn square the nodes of the moon, and we look for the resolution node here, the resolution node in this case is also the south node. And here we have the south node in the 12th house in Scorpio. Scorpio is a relationship house. It's in a relationship sign. It has to do with where we share both our resources, our money, and our bodies in Scorpio, right? But Scorpio can also be things that are hidden, things that are sort of like the things that are under a rock, kind of like slimy things. And it's in the 12th house at the time of when this starts. And so it can be an uncovering of hidden enemies here, hidden enemies perhaps to the US. We have Saturn square the node, Saturn in Aquarius. Saturn is about holding people responsible. And so they're going back to the past to see what relationships are responsible for what happened. Okay, so we can see that here. We also have Jupiter and Mars and Chiron here in the 4th house. This is going to actually make a little bit more sense when we look to how it affects the actual insurrection chart. So the other thing I want to point out is now Neptune, which when the insurrection occurred, right, was square the nodes. It is now actually trine the south node and sextile the north node. So instead of working against us as far as truth and lies, there is a flow. Okay, there is a flow here. And so I think that things are going to be cleared up quite a bit because of that. All right, so let's take a look at this chart right here. So this is the breaching of the capital, okay? It had a Gemini ascendant, so perhaps we could say that the people were having their voices heard in some way. It has a Sagittarius descendant, this particular chart, the capital breach chart. And what I've done is I've overlaid the public hearing. Now, the first thing you may notice is that the sun is sitting on the north node of the day of the insurrection. What I believe this is going to show us is it's going to illuminate the thinking process of the whole Capitol breach. Now, I know that there are certainly many people involved in this. Of course, Donald Trump's primary goal was to stay as president. And he, at whatever cost it was going to be, that was pretty obvious. Now, the other participants, the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers and these other organizations that have been around for a long time, I think they saw it as an opportunity to really, like, this was as close as they were going to get, I think, to overturning the government up to this point, right? Up to this point. So I think that different people had different, stakes in this. The other thing that's very interesting is that Jupiter is sitting on Chiron in this chart. Now, Chiron in Aries is a wound around identity. It can be wounds around war and warriors. Many of the Oath Keepers, many of the Proud Boys were former military who perhaps felt like, I think to a certain extent that, America going out and, overtaking all these countries at their expense because they're the soldiers. They wanted what was important to be looked at home. And they obviously on some level thought that, that taking over the government or, whatever, this white supremacy stuff, especially since, ever since Obama got in, for 8 years, I think they were sort of ratcheting up that because, and this happened after the Civil War and Black people got the right to vote. Then they instituted the Jim Crow laws. So there's this like realization that, oh my God, like a Black person could do an awesome job. And then the hammer comes down and they try to suppress it. And there, that's also happening with the gay rights and trans rights and all of that stuff, which is not part of this discussion. But we can see when progress is made that we get a pushback. We're like, no, we're not going to move forward. We're not going to move forward. However, I don't think that there's really anything that's going to stop the moving forward of things at this point. But maybe that's just my optimism speaking. All right. So with Jupiter here, Jupiter expands, right? Jupiter expands. And with this Chiron here at 5 degrees of Aries, there was maybe a segment of the population perhaps that didn't feel like they were having their voices heard. An understanding of the wounds here, right? We could call it a wound of identity. We could call it a wound of toxic masculinity. We could call it a wound of not taking care of our soldiers. There's many things that we could connect Chiron in Aries to. But what I want to point out is that the idea, the thought, the maybe reason will be illuminated through that Jupiter expanding that energy. We also have to note that Pluto, actually Pluto at the time of the insurrection, Mercury was moving away from Pluto. It had just had a conjunction with Pluto. And Pluto is fairly close to the degree, just about a degree off, where we had the Pluto-Saturn conjunction of 2020, which of course, is looked at as, part of the whole COVID experience, but also always a big deal, and often associated with some sort of unknown antigen or disease process. The last time they came together in 1982, the disease of the moment, the thing we didn't understand, the scary thing that was looming over all of us was AIDS, right? So now this is a little different. It's a different kind of virus and much more communicative. So, much more like everybody can get it. Whereas with AIDS, you had to do certain things and be in certain groups to contract it. Of course, we didn't understand it at the time, so it was a scary thing. But it's just a different animal here, right? So, but at the time, we had Mercury at 27 degrees of Capricorn, 2712, and now we have Pluto here at 2813. So Pluto is sitting on the Mercury of the insurrection, and it's happening in the 9th house, which is a house associated with justice. So we can see that the idea, perhaps the exposure is being exposed, the reasons behind things. If you also notice, we have Mercury now trine Mercury, right? And this is a creative self-expressive trine, and Mercury just came out of retrograde and is sitting with Algol at that degree. So there's a lot of power in that Mercury, and it's sitting, and all of this energy is sitting in the 12th house of that which is hidden from us. And so I believe that there is going to be factual sort of evidence as to what has happened, what is, what's going on here, what can we expect. We also actually have, as I sit here and look at this, we have a trine between Saturn here, that's up in the 10th house, Saturn in the 10th house, holding somebody responsible, perhaps trining the moon here. So this can imbue some understanding for the average person, and also trining the sun and the north node. So this really just indicates that there are truths that are going to come out that perhaps many people don't know. So let's take a look at, let's see, is this the next one? So this is Donald Trump's chart right here. Okay, and this is the what's going to be happening tomorrow. And a couple of things with Trump's chart is he does have Saturn. Now it's moving retrograde, so it just turned retrograde, opposing his Mars. It has not gone It will not go over his Mars, I think, until 2023. So I think we're going to hear about his actions, hidden actions, 12th house, but he may not actually pay the piper till next year. That being said, I mean, really pay the piper. That being said, he is going to get exposed through this. And we can see the sun here sitting right on his north node, right on. In fact, the sun is sitting pretty much at the midpoint of his Uranus and his north node. So this is exposure here. This is exposure. And he will be having his solar return soon. And that solar return actually happens on the full moon in Sagittarius, which in itself is a very interesting chart to look at, especially for him. So he has Saturn opposing his Mars. That is not a happy thing to have. But he also has, let's see, there's something. He has Pluto is in conjuncting his Mars. And there were a couple of other things happening in this chart that were not particularly good. We have Chiron opposing Chiron, Mars also opposing Chiron, and Jupiter in Aries opposing his Neptune. His Neptune in that second house, this is, he has Neptune square his Mercury, the only aspect to his Mercury, the only major aspect to his Mercury, and it's a square to Neptune. This is somebody who lies. This is somebody who lies. And we have Jupiter here, which expands and in its way exposes. So we have Jupiter opposing his Neptune, maybe an exposure of the lie, let's hope, seeing for what it is, square squaring his Mercury here. So for him, it's not really good news. For him, it's not really good news, but he is kind of the Teflon Don, right? So even though it's bad news, he's had bad news all this time, and yet he still has people supporting him, mainly the Republican Party, who has decided to ignore the fact that he was destroying democracy, and you know, so that they can have power in this next election. They want to win the House, and what's his name? McCarthy wants to be the House, the majority leader, et cetera, et cetera. They feel like they only have a couple of seats that they have to turn, and they feel like they're going to win the House, and then they can go after all these January 6 people who are looking into the truth, and whatever else they don't want to do, because it's not really about what they want to do when it comes to the Republicans, is what they don't want to see happen. So they'll continue to obstruct if they're given the opportunity, for sure. We also have Mars here square his Pluto. Mars square his Pluto. It's a last quarter crisis and consciousness square. It has the energy of Capricorn. That part of the chart has the energy of Capricorn. So there is a certain amount of being held responsible here, being held responsible, paying the piper to a certain extent. Okay, let's see what else we have here. As far as this hearing and the Democratic Party, this is a chart of the Democratic Party. This is the chart of the hearing. There are a couple of things going on here. We do have Pluto, the planet of transformation, sitting right on the Uranus of the Democratic Party. These are transpersonal energies, both of them. They're not as there's definitely a shift in the focus of the party, but it's not, I don't think it's specific to this particular hearing, because, you know, this has been going on for a while. Pluto is in its return. It's been around this degree for a while. So this is a process of transformation in a very public way of the Democratic Party. What we do have here is we have Jupiter sitting on Pluto. They have Pluto in Aries, and Jupiter is an expansion of that energy. It is in the 12th house. So in a way, it is sort of expanding the power to initiate. the power to initiate, right? Aries. And so, albeit there are things happening in this chart, it's not so like, oh my God, look what's happening to the Democratic Party. Let's look at the Republican Party. This is the chart for the Republican Party. This is the chart for the for tomorrow's hearing, public hearing. We see the North Node close, the sun close to the North Node. See the sun close to the North Node. Probably the most significant thing I see in this chart, well, there's actually a couple. We have Mars trining Mars in that 8th house. Now, that has me a tad concerned. This whole thing has me a tad concerned because we are waiting to finally get some information. Things are going to be proven, and I do think that there are those in the Republican Party that in whatever way they can, they do not want the truths to come out. In fact, I just heard that Fox News is not going to be they're not going to be covering this. So Fox Entertainment, I should say, because God knows it's not news. But we do have Saturn sitting on the moon here. And so I think it is going to change some minds in the Republican Party, but I do think that it is people who have been silent through this. So that's what I want to say about that. Okay, let's take a look at this now. What do we have here? So this is a chart of the US, and this is the breach of the Capitol. Okay, so this was the insurrection on the US chart. And we can see here's Mercury on the day of the insurrection sitting on Pluto. The other thing is we had Uranus making a square to the nodes of the moon, Uranus is disruptive. The resolution node for the nodes of the moon, for Uranus squaring the nodes of the moon in the American chart, on the day of the insurrection, is that south node in Aquarius. And so there was this energy of this sense that like they felt like it was like 1776 again. They had this feeling that they were fighting for their way of life, fighting for their country. They want their country back. Saturn and Jupiter here on the south node, but they were being duped. And I think that there's a certain amount of truth in wanting your country back, because America spends a lot of time poking around in other people's business and not taking care of its own business. And so there's a seed of truth in that, but the truth does not include Donald Trump being president. They were duped with that, but I think the sentiment is honest. It's an honest sentiment here. We also have the north node of the moon sitting on Mars here in this chart. Now, of course, the United States has Mars in Gemini. Mars and Gemini often have to have two different things. They always have to have an enemy. If they don't have an enemy without, they will have an enemy within. Incidentally, we're going to have a Mars retrograde at the end of this year in Gemini, and it is going to go over the Mars of the United States 3 times. So we're going to have an opportunity to rethink how we put ourselves out there, especially when it comes to the military stuff. But that is, of course, another discussion for another day. All right, what do we have here? What else did I pull up? I did a couple of things here. Now, here's the public hearing in the United States, right? So this is the US chart again. And you see the ascendant for this US chart is 13 degrees. If you remember, the ascendant for the hearing is 14 degrees. So pretty much on the same degree as the United States Sibley chart anyway. So we have the sun on Mars here. Mars, Mars in Gemini is divide and conquer, divide and conquer. So we're going to see that. We're going to see that energy. Of course, we're going through our Pluto return. Why not? What else would be happening? And if you notice, the moon for the U.S. in the Sibley chart is almost identical to the moon in the Republicans chart, actually, and we have Saturn sitting there. This is more indicative of the challenges I think we're having with inflation more than anything, but also this is, people are going to be informed or shown the responsibility of this, I believe. I think that's what that could mean here. And we have Chiron now making an opposition to Saturn. This is about abuses of power. Abuses of power that comes into sort of focus, along with Mars here, which will eventually be opposing Saturn, that in Libra, maybe by the end of this. Actually, I should check that out. In fact, I don't actually know when it ends. So if you want to let me know when this hearing is supposed to end, I think it's 6 days, but I could be wrong. We can look at it at the time when it's going to be wrapping up. But we can look at these charts again. We don't have to do, this doesn't have to be a one-off thing. We can take a look and see how things are developing as we go through. So just keep, I'll make an announcement when I put that out as well. All right, so okay, so let me stop the share here, and I don't think I can get a timestamp, so I'll have to figure that out later. But let's do a card reading on what is how this January 6th commission, this public hearing. Let's look at the public hearing and how it is going to what it's going to mean for the U.S. What's it going to mean? The public hearing, what's it going to mean? And I'm using my Crow Tarot. We'll take a look. So I hope you got a little inspiration or a little information anyway from that look at the January 6th. So many of us have been waiting so very long for justice to happen. But it is happening. It is happening. Okay, so we have the Nine of Pentacles. We start with the Nine of Pentacles. There's a sense of job well done here, that there's a lot of fodder in this cannon, right? Or fodder for this cannon. We have the sun up there illuminating. We have a butterfly up here, transformation. The wolf here, wolf or Malamute, actually looks a little like a Malamute, is an energy of teaching, the teacher. So we're going to be learning a lot. Now it is Pentacles, so we may actually get some information on who funded this. And I think of all the things that people want to know that don't have anything to do with Donald Trump, that may be the thing that is most prominent in people's mind, follow the money. This is what's challenging it. So we want to hope beyond hope that this is going to change things, that this is really going to be a sort of a watershed moment, and we start to move in the right direction. I'll tell you right now, we're already moving in the right direction. One of the things I wanted to mention, which I forgot to mention at the beginning, is, when we had the Mueller report and we had all these other reports, the Republicans were in charge. The Republicans are no longer in charge. We tend to forget that the Democrats are in power. Of course, sometimes Democrats remember that as well, forget that as well. That's another reading for another day, isn't it? But the Eight of Cups as a challenge to the Nine of Pentacles. We almost feel like there's this feeling like it doesn't matter like how many facts we have. It doesn't matter if we dotted our I's and crossed all our T's. It's still not going to work because it hasn't worked in the past. And there's this feeling of futility and this feeling of like we don't want to get too excited about anything because of that. And who could blame us? Who could blame us? Every time we thought it was over, it wasn't, and it would just get worse, right? It would just get worse. So what's at the root is the High Priestess. So at the root of this is that we are going to get information that nobody knew before. We're going to find out, I think, to a certain extent, who backed this. Who were these people? What was going on here? Now, will we get to the tippy top? I don't know. That's kind of iffy because the people who really pull the strings generally aren't seen. But we'll see what the cards say. Let's see the past. We have the Five of Cups. So this is sorrow. This is grief. I mean, honestly, people, the United States, Pluto return, my God, right? Like the grief we're feeling, not just from the insurrection, but from 4 years of Trump, from 2 years of COVID, from, people just, we're in such a dire need for healing. For healing. People are in pain. People don't take to their government because they're having a good time. They're in pain too. And I'm not saying that it's justified in any way, because we're in pain as well. The people who would not want to see that happen are pain. We have to resolve our shadows, right? Pluto return. And then also in 2023, we're going to be having our Chiron return. And it's actually our 5th Chiron return, because Chiron returns happen about every 52 years. So we're about 250 years old. So number 5 Chiron return happening next year. First Pluto return happening now. And I know some people say the Pluto return isn't going to happen until next year or whatever, but we've been going through the process of our Pluto return since about 2017 in earnest, or 2016, when Pluto was about 10 degrees away at like 17 degrees of 18 degrees of Capricorn. So whether it's today or next year, we have been going through that process. In fact, I think the whole Trump presidency was a way of us to really sort of, the Pluto return on a certain level is taking out the stinkiest cesspool and dumping it all over the ground so everybody can see the crap that's in it. And that's really what's happening. And we have to see it, we have to understand it, and we have to heal it. And we have to not deny its existence, but embrace it to change it. In the sky, we have the Three of Cups. So there is a certain celebratory energy around this. This is actually, we have in this deck, we have a little victory wreath there, the laurels, right? The victory. So it looks good for at least us feeling good that it's happening. Let's see what's in the immediate future. Yes, the Seven of Swords. We're going to find out who was behind this. This is all the hidden stuff. This. I think there's going to be quite a few bombshells, guys. I have to say, how it's seen from the outside, a new beginning for America. We'll have to ask all our friends from Australia if they see that. Domestic situation, the Magician, taking our power back. Taking our power back. These are very, very good cards. Hopes and fears, all the information coming out. I know what I hope, and I know what they fear, right? This is about more and more information coming out. Let's see the outcome. This is the Constitution. This is the Hierophant is the Constitution. The government will will overcome this. The government will, could we say win? And when I say win, I think there's many nuances to that, just like the chart showed. We have to understand we have to understand the pain that drove people to this place. It's not about blaming, it's about assigning responsibility. And a lot of that responsibility is in the hands of those in power, mainly the Republicans. And I know people are going to be like, oh, it's half and half. It's not. It's not. That is a lie. The Republicans really are the ones who are putting the gunk in the works for anything to get done. The Democrats don't know how to fight that, obviously. And the Republican Party has just gone through its second Uranus return. It had its last. It had three points where Uranus came to Uranus in its chart. The last one being, I think, was February 23rd of 2022. Two happened in 2021. So the Republican Party is going through that sort of transformational process, and rebellious. It oftentimes in mundane astrology, Uranus is associated with right-wing politics. Neptune is associated with left-wing politics. But Neptune will be going into Aries in 2026. So there is going to be a shift. There is going to be a change, but we're still in the midst of this period of time, this Uranian period of time, I would say, and then of course the Pluto return. So these are very, very, very powerful cards. And so we have the Lovers here. This is about people coming together. It's about relationship. It's about choice. The Chariot to move forward in our evolution, and the Wheel of Fortune to change things. Things are going to get turned on its head. This is, and I really, I'm an optimist, and I believe that this is the thing that's going to change the tide. The tide's already changing, but now it's like really going to change. And I am a little concerned about what those people who have the most to lose are willing to do at this time. So I'm sure that, you know, the Capitol Police and the FBI and the Justice Department, all those guys got their eyes open. I don't think they have their eyes closed anymore. So I think we'll be okay. But this is big. This is big, and this is part of us. This is part of the healing process. We have to start focusing on us, on ourselves as a country, what democracy means. We have to get money out of politics. We have to educate our children. They have to know the true history. They have to know the wins that we've had, how special America is, the history. We have to come to terms with what we've done to Africans, African Americans. We have to come to terms with what we've done to the native population of this country. That is being looked at this time with the Department of the Interior and looking into the Indian schools. So this is there's still a lot of cesspool stuff that's going to come up, some truths that are going to be very painful to look at. But if you don't look at it, the pain comes out anyway. I mean, why do you think we're allowing our children to be shot up with weapons weapons of war, or any child for that matter, or any country to just be able to go in and bomb at their leisure, right? Russia, right? America, right? Saudi Arabia, right? Any of the other empires. It's a new order of things. We are moving into the Aquarian age, and we're going to have to work together. If we don't, we're not going to make it to the next age. So we have to get serious about love and connection and the earth, all of those things. And this is a big turnaround. This is a big turn. This is like a mind thing. Um, and there's hope here. There's big hope, but it doesn't like they're not going to find it, and then all of a sudden it's going to go back to the way it was, because the way it was is what created the problem. And so we need to start new, a rebirth, a rebirth. And we're in our Pluto return, so it looks like it's going to happen. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you again for another, oh, I don't know. Ask me a question, and I'll see what I can do about it. Oh, so take care. If you'd like a reading with me, you can reach me at my website, theseedsoftransformation.com. I offer hour and hour and a half readings. I do astrology, I do Kabbalah, I can do straight astrology, whatever it is that you want. Just, drop me a line. All right, guys, take care. Much love. Namaste. Oh, like and subscribe. And if you think anybody could benefit from this, share it with them. That'd be wonderful. Okay, guys, take care. Love ya.